Go ahead and do it, Mr. Reddit.
Bring it on, Reddit boy. Welcome to the Gabriel Speak Show. Thank y'all for tuning back in. This is going to be some updates in the last week or two in the UAP UFO field. Some crazy stuff has happened, and I wanted to make sure that I'm keeping my audience up. From Jeremy Korbell, George Knapp, Lou Elizondo visiting us here in McMinnville, Oregon, in McMinemens. Jeremy Korbell, George Knapp responding to this crazy Reddit post that came out. Ross Coulthart posting a video about Ashton Forbes MH370 and receiving a cease and desist. Eric Burlison, representative, says he has the inside scoop on what UAPs are, and they might not be what you think. We're also going to listen to Stephen Colbert interview Steven Spielberg about what he thinks UFOs are, and you might be shocked at his theory. It's something we've talked about on this show. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching Gabriel Speaks.
McMinemens, this company, they do all this stuff that it is admirable. They restore, save, repurpose old buildings, old schools. They're very cool. All of them have different themes. That's great. They have breweries that produce their own beers. They import coffees, roast their own coffees. They have all these cool products and a great appreciation for music. And I ask them, hey, do you guys need an investigative reporter? Because that's a great company.
Pretty cool stuff there. I love McMinemens. They have so many great brews and food there too. If you go, they've got hotels. They've even got in Portland some revamped old school movie theaters and whatnot. Really a cool organization. We've got one in town here that's a revamped train station that they've turned into one of their pubs. So I'm a big lover of McMinemens. Now let's get into some updates from this week. We're going to start with Steven Spielberg on the Stephen Colbert Show, talking about UFOs and some of his theories as he's got this new UFO movie that he's working on coming out. Check this out.
What do you make of what's going on right now?
Oh, it's exciting. There's something out there.
So you're a believer?
I don't know if I'm a believer in the sense that I'm kind of the person that would think I got to see something like that to believe it. I can make up stuff,
sure,
and make movies about things that I've never seen or experienced, and that's fine. But in terms of really believing something, I think I'd have to have my own close encounter. Mm-hmm. So I've never seen a UFO. I wish I did.
Nothing that's unexplained.
I've never seen anything that I couldn't explain. Mm-hmm. But I believe certain people who have seen things that they can't explain that is unexplainable. I think what has been coming out recently is fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I think the secrecy that is shrouding all of these sightings, mm-hmm, and the lack of transparency until Freedom of Information Act compels certain materials to be released publicly. I think that there is something going on that simply needs extraordinary, due diligence. I mean, I would like to hear more about it. I don't know what they are. My imagination and my love for, I don't believe we're alone in the universe, but I just know as a person that makes movies and uses his imagination, and also as a person that is insatiably curious about UFOs, or that there's something going on that we're really not being made that's not being disclosed to us. Senators
who've been briefed on this have said there are things the American people deserve to know, and the quote I love is, and they're ready to learn.
The most optimistic thing I feel about these things that we're seeing in the skies, or the Army and Navy and Air Force are recording on their gun cameras, is that what if they're not from an advanced civilization 300 million light years from here, but what if it's us 500,000 years into the future that is coming back to document the second half of the 20th century and into the first 20th century because they're anthropologists and they know something that we don't quite know yet that has occurred, and they're trying to track the last 100 years of our history, or a certain percentage of us survived that allows these other generations to flourish. I believe that if any extraterrestrial civilization has journeyed all the way here, it's because of curiosity and science, and it's not about aggression. Yeah, exactly. And the fact they've been this patient with us and haven't turned the Earth into a burned out cinder is extraordinary.
You gotta love Steven Spielberg, just the creative genius and the honesty behind his statements. He says he hasn't had anything happen, but he sure wishes it would. And his imagination really runs wild when he starts hearing about all of this fantastical stuff. I think all of ours does. And that's why you're probably watching this right now, because we're all just trying to get more knowledge and a better understanding of what all this phenomena is. All right, let's get into Representative Burlison and this information that came out. Looks like he was on some kind of foreign podcast or something, and this video's gotten some traction because what he's saying the UAP phenomena are, at least as far as a contractor counterpart of his, is, well, I'll let you listen for yourself. Check it out.
A military contractor from my part of the United States, the Midwest, who makes his own drones for the U.S. government, and in the course of testing his drones, flying his drones, he's captured footage and photos of some other some competitors and their advanced products that are flying, and he claims that he has video footage of breakthrough technology, but it's not alien. This individual, and he's not ready to come forward yet. I'm going to go meet with him, but he says it's not alien.
There it is from Representative Burlison. All this weird stuff flying around from his contractor buddy appears to be advanced technology, but not alien. This is human advanced technology, at least what they're seeing up in the skies and from their perspective and sensors and whatnot. Interesting. Shawn Ryan, what do you think about aliens?
Did all this alien extraterrestrial shit. I mean, it's fun to dig down there, but I mean, I think it's a big distraction. I don't know if it's meant to be some type of a controlled op, but I think it is. I think all this stuff is spiritual.
I guess we see Shawn Ryan's point. He believes it's spiritual. I got into this in my last video. There's a big part of the Pentagon that believes a lot of this has to do with spirituality, including Tucker Carlson, the show Shawn Ryan was on. Pretty fascinating stuff. I got into it in my last episode. If you want to check it out, there is a large contingent of folks in the Pentagon that do believe that that's the truth, that it's demonic. So make of that what you will. I'm not saying that's how it is, but there is a lot of people that are saying that. So I find that rather interesting. Now, over the last few days, there was a post on Reddit that got a lot of heat, a lot of attention. I'm really kind of surprised that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp spent their time responding to this, but they seem to think it was some kind of internal CIA leak or something of that nature. The post kind of alluded to Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton being kind of actually the ones holding back advanced technology because they're trying to cash in. Take a look. Let me know what you think. We'll talk about the Reddit post after Corbell and Knapp respond here.
Apparently there was some leak, right, of OSAP materials or some government materials. And then there was this long thing where they're just absolutely saying absolute nonsense. What they said was trying to kind of create disinformation about Jay Stratton, Lou Elizondo, all this stuff. And I just want to hear from you. Did you see the images in that Reddit post?
I did, and I'll just tell you this, they look familiar. I am familiar with that material. Some of that is a leak. This was an attack. This is a disinformation program. It's what I would call debunking. If that person really does have access to all the OSAP files, release it, put it out. If that person is actually going to do what they claim they're going to do and spill this stuff out, get to it. Let's go. Yeah. They accused Jay Stratton of being this UFO czar whose power extends all over the globe. He's been able to thwart special technology In this country, technology developed from OSAP and studies of UFOs. Not only this country, I saw a couple of days after this attack, somebody posted something I know for sure that Jay Stratton has killed new advanced technology here in Australia. He has the power to kill tech companies in Australia. It's ridiculous.
I do find it interesting that George Knapp says anything is ridiculous after like years of reporting on crazy stuff. If anybody should be saying something isn't ridiculous, you would think it was George Knapp. Kind of a weird stance to take, but I feel like Korbell and Knapp are both getting a little defensive here about this post.
In the early 2000s, my position at the Defense Intelligence Agency as the Chief of Air and Space Warfare, meaning I'm responsible for looking at foreign capabilities in the air and space world, domains, from an emerging and disruptive technology standpoint, meaning anything that might challenge the United States' superiority on the battlefield. And I started to see some things, some images of things, some documented proof of things that we really didn't understand. And I couldn't trace them back to an adversary on the planet. My leaning was it's us, right? So these things are so advanced sometimes and the capabilities demonstrated. So I'm thinking, this is just one of our platforms. And as I went around the government trying to find, one, is it ours? And I got that answer. The answer was no. And two, okay, then if it's not us, who is it? And if it's,
somebody spying on you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Safety and security, right?
So a guy with that resume, they're saying there's no way he could have influenced energy propulsion, specifically energy propulsion in flying things that we manage and other countries manage, and apparently, according to Burlison, private contractors manage. This is all interesting and kind of coming together. He also says a lot of the same stuff you kind of hear from this particular group with like Lou and all them, which is, there's unidentified things in the sky. We can't identify them, not of human origin. It's like all these same talking points that they're hitting on, not of human origin. It's pretty interesting when you pay attention to the words that they're using and that the words that they're not using specifically. So here's the thing, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, their feathers are really ruffled about this Reddit post. Let's listen to him go on about it here for a minute.
Whoever this is, they have very low access to information, so they're putting things out as if they have a lot of access. You just called for them to release everything. Go ahead and do it, Mr. Reddit. What I saw there was an absolute classic counterintelligence, misinformation, disinformation attempt to, kind of put shade on people like Lou Elizondo, like Jay Stratton, who I do believe are doing their best to get information out. I would say it was absolute horse shit. So we do hope there is a leak. Go ahead, do it. It's not classified. Put it out. We challenge you to do so. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think they use that to try to disinform the American public by using Reddit.
All right. Can someone down in the comments remind me what this is called, like the Streisand effect or something? They're going to produce the exact opposite effect, because the first thing I did as soon as I heard that was go to Reddit and find the post and look up all the information that they're saying. Unfortunately, it's not stuff I haven't heard before. It's not stuff we haven't heard in this community before. We all hope that all these guys are being honest with the best of intentions and what they're telling us is true. But to not question that, you have to be able to question every single part of this. And Corbell and Knapp here, they spent a lot of time like really going after this poster, even going as far as saying there's some kind of inside CIA operative or something like that to try to discredit their message. Well, I think that has the opposite effect. Tell me what you think down in the comments.
Look, I'm telling you, there are not that many electrical engineers who work for OSAP. So this person, if they're trying to remain anonymous, it's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's not somebody that worked for OSAP. This is from an agency. This is somebody that's going after Jay and Lou to try to undercut their credibility at a key moment.
One, this is not someone that worked for OSAP. And B, this is not someone that worked for OSAP.
Jay Stratton is the only guy who was there at OSAP at the initial stages, helped to set it up. The first guy to investigate the Tic Tac incident and write reports about it. Then he was there for ATIP at the top of the heap, working with insiders there. He became the head of the UAP task force before it existed. He was assigned, given that job. Did a great job pulling together a bunch of experts from different agencies. Then Congress officially authorized it, and they made him the top. That might have been the last era when we had actual transparency and truth from any of these UFO programs while Jay was there. He's got a book coming out. He's still waiting for Dopser. I talked to a number of intelligence folks about this anonymous post, as you have. They think it is horseshit, and comes from the inside, not from the outside.
George Knapp has always been, in my book, a solid reporter. He's made some mistakes in the past. I don't know how you could be a reporter, honestly, and never make a mistake. It'd be really hard. But what he does here is he's just writing this person off, even though they do have some relevant documents, because they're staying anonymous. And he should know as well as anyone that staying anonymous is important when you're fearful for, I don't know, your life. I think George Knapp is taking a real defensive stance here, and so is Jeremy Corbell, because what this person is saying is negative towards someone they've had in their group that they've used as a source, that they've exposed to a lot of folks, and that they've had in their network for a while. Like they're just celebrating in McMinemens. Lou was there with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. They're all there together celebrating. This is a dude that's in their circle, and it sounds like it's circle up the wagons and defend from anyone that's anti-message. To even go as far as to say George checked with sources and it looks like it's an inside CIA type thing, that's super weird. I don't know if I believe that. The person even said they were a contractor. I re-aired the Matthew Brown podcast. I whittled it down to a consumable, like 10, 15 minutes on my last episode. We talked about it a little bit. In my stance, Matthew Brown is a hero. I still believe that until someone can prove otherwise. I think what he's doing is extremely brave and courageous, and I commend him for what he's doing. I did find it interesting that after that episode, it seemed like Knapp and Corbell were more celebratory about their numbers than the message.
We have done really well in some shows. We don't really check into how it ranks on all these various podcast platforms, but I guess Matthew Brown really attracted a lot of viewers. Matthew Brown really attracted a lot of viewers and listeners, and we were back at number 1 in the science category. And we are glad to be number 1 in the category. We are also glad that Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's not all that friendly to the UFO topic, is down that list looking up at us. And he's got to be wondering, who the hell are those guys? They're not scientists, right?
Hey, Weaponized, number 1 podcast in science. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Brown, those 3 shows we did with him, it clearly connected with the audience. We got a lot of great feedback, from all over the world. And people have a lot of questions that we'll get into tonight, but I mean, we're not just number 1 in science. I mean, we're doing pretty well across the board.
I watched that whole video. I didn't see them answer any questions about Matthew Brown after that. To me, the message really should have been about Matthew Brown. I think it's great, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, the Weaponized podcast, who got number 1 in science. Perfect. I think the fact that it could piss off Neil deGrasse Tyson, even better. Neil deGrasse Tyson is fine, but the whole fact that he's so anti what could be extraterrestrial life in such a gigantic universe is dumbfounding to me. I don't understand how a guy that brilliant can believe that. The other thing, though, is that I haven't really seen this side of George Knapp, where it's kind of like, F you, we're number 1. Anybody with the opposite message, you're full of shit. We don't care. We got the right stuff. We have the correct sources. We know what's going on. We have these contacts that you'll never know, and we have all these inside sources. Putting themselves in a gatekeeper position. I just think these are just observations I'm making that I think is interesting. Another thing we covered last week was Lou Elizondo kind of fumbling and holding up a picture at a UFO conference of a debunked UFO, saying this is a giant disc-shaped UFO in the middle of the country. Of course, he got a ton of shit for it on social media and everywhere else, even here on my channel where I'm super open. So let's listen to what Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have to say in Elizondo's defense of that blunder.
So Lou was getting a bunch of heat because he held up some photo that ended up being irrigation circles. You know, he did try to qualify it. I watched it too. He says this needs more, investigation and that kind of thing. But damn, people are just attacking him. It was a mistake. I mean, I talked to Lou about it this weekend, George, and it was like, dude, it was a mistake. You know, that's going to happen. We got to cut him a little slack and do our best. I felt bad that was, really brought up where people really shit on him. It's good to know more information, but I just want to squash all of the conspiracy theories.
He didn't claim it's some secret classified document from deep inside the Pentagon or something. He made that pretty clear. Humans make mistakes. We've made them. I hope I live long enough to make more of them. And I would expect that to happen because we are flawed.
We do all make mistakes. Absolutely. But when you're an expert and you hold up a photo saying this is a thing with high-level established senators there at this convention and say this is what this is, having not vetted it at all, that's a pretty big blunder. I understand we all make mistakes, but that's a big one, especially given the position that Lou holds and the position that he wants to hold in being this huge contractor for the government. We need to know if this is an honest guy or a guy that will just say anything to get the next grant, to get the next contract or whatever it may be. We have seen him jump around quite a bit to different organizations and groups in the UFO field. Now, we're going to wrap this part up with Jeremy Corbell and Knapp talking about FBI involvement in UFO research. Another thing I think is interesting to hear Knapp say is him encouraging the FBI involvement. It is a good thing to shed more light on it, but I don't know that Knapp's always had the highest opinion of the FBI in the past. Check this out. And then we're going to wrap it up with one final kind of crazy thing.
The fact that the FBI is involved in investigating UFO, UAP-related issues should be a surprise to no one. There are national security implications to this matter. There are Russians and people from other nations who are actively gathering information. They're watching what goes on. They're looking for leaks. So the FBI should, that's part of its job, it should be involved.
Now, I don't disagree with that. There have been deaths. There have been multiple references to homicides, murders, people being suicided, people being disappeared. And I think the more agencies we can get involved with 3 letters or more, the better, because I think that's the only way we're going to actually find out what happened with some of these folks. And I know there's some lawsuits working their way through the courts right now, but the problem with lawsuits is that if they settle, we may never know what happened and why those folks were paid for those injuries. So even though Danny Sheehan's going out saying we are working these way through the courts, if they get to a settlement situation, we will probably never hear again what they actually settled on and why. Okay, moving on to something a little more humorous. Ashton Forbes has been out there talking about this MH370 thing forever. This video that has been debunked time and time again. Finally, Ross Coulthart made a statement on the matter. And well, here's Ashton's tweet right here talking about how he's going to do a cease and desist. I think that's kind of interesting. So let's take a look at this video of Ross talking about Ashton's MH370 evidence.
It is time to give a response to this issue. Firstly, I've spoken to somebody in the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency who tells me that the video that is shown in that supposedly leaked video bears no resemblance at all to the kind of video telemetry that you get from those satellites. It's not NGIA NGIA or indeed any other type of US government satellite. But more importantly, and I think surely to God, this would kill the issue stone dead if people looked at it. There are videos of the clouds that were taken from a photo bank, a known photo bank, and they show very, very clearly that whatever the... I'll just put it up on screen. So I think the one on the left is the one that's cited in the MH370 video and promoted by Ashton Forbes. And the one on the right is from a photo video bank. And the guy who actually shot the photograph for the photo video bank, which is essentially a raw archive of images, the photographer has come forward and said, I shot that photograph. That's my cloud. And all I know is that when Ashton was asked about this and asked to explain the reasons why the clouds in the supposed leaked video bear an identical resemblance, not a resemblance, they're identical to the ones from the photo archive, he really didn't have an adequate explanation. In fact, when Danny Jones raised it with him on his podcast, he gave Danny Jones a rather puerile explanation that my butthole looks like your butthole, which is quite vulgar and really didn't answer the question. So I'm really sorry. I don't agree at all that this is persuasive evidence. And I think that Mick West, to his great credit, the skeptic, I think he calls himself Metabunk, he wrote a piece for the skeptics, which basically went through in great detail. Mick's also a guy who's worked, I think, in CGI and graphics. And he's explained, I think, very persuasively why he doubts very, very much that the MH370 video is an authentic leaked government video. But I know, as I say this, that I will immediately become the victim of excoriating attacks from Ashton Forbes, who is unbelievably aggressive.
Well, he was certainly right about that, wasn't he? Because we all saw the X post and the threat of a cease and desist, which is kind of a joke in this field, right? If you put yourself out there, I mean, people are gonna talk about it and talk about you, and you just have to be prepared for that. And you have to embrace and be open to other opinions. I think if you ride something into the ground, that's where you're gonna end up is right into the ground. So pretty humorous. What adds, I think, insult to injury is check out this image that shows that basically when the plane disappears, or whatever scientific explanation Ashton gives it, warps or atomicizes or whatever, that image here from Ron Burgundy's eyes. And so I think, if anything, that tells us that 60% of the time it will work every time, at least for Ashton. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's updates in this crazy UFO UAP phenomena field. Be ready, because I'm going to have a guest on here soon who's a little more skeptic than I am on some of this stuff, and I can't wait to get into it and hear his perspective on some of this stuff. That's going to be on the next episode. Make sure you are subscribed, and make sure you hit the little bell thing so you know when that's out. Have a great evening, y'all. Stay safe.